Wakanda forever. Dave, if you're watching on YouTube, your background is Namor from this, and I gotta say,
Mhm,
good call because I did not really like Wakanda Forever very much, but Namor was someone that I did enjoy quite a bit.
mhm,
Um, to be honest, I thought Wakanda Forever, while certainly a fine attempt at trying to keep a series going that was purely focused on or centered around a character that is no longer able to be on screen with Chadwick Boseman passing and not able to play T'Challa anymore. I thought they did a serviceable job of trying to like revive it, but overall just did not really work for me. And I think there's some cool things, but I think overall it almost just felt kind of random. Like
mm.
some of the moments I felt like kind of came out of nowhere and things just kind of happened, but didn't really totally make sense to me. So I was a bit disappointed. Where were you? Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to frame it because Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, unfortunately, not by design, out of necessity, has to serve a lot of masters due to the passing of Chadwick Boseman in 2020. Of course, the loss of Chadwick Boseman is really insurmountable. Uh, Hard to really state, him as truly, I think, one of like the signature American actors of his time, and an incalculable loss. And to try and make a sequel to Black Panther without him is, you know, like you said, they gave it their best chance. So as a result, Ryan Coogler and Marvel, everyone at Marvel, like they had to redo this movie. They rewrote it. Obviously, it has to start off right away with big downer. They have to address the fact that T'Challa is dead. Very somber vibe in the theater because how could it be anything else? No one's happy that we don't get to see Chadwick Boseman in our lives anymore. It sucks. And unfortunately, like Wakanda Forever, it just has to have a lot of downer qualities to it too. On the other side of things, it's serving as a sequel to Black Panther and a new MCU movie in general. It's doing actually a fair amount of MCU storytelling setup that I didn't necessarily expect. You have the introduction of Dominique Thorne's new character, Riri Williams, who will, of course, be the star of the Ironheart MCU series later in 2023 on Disney Plus. And then, even more unexpectedly, you have a fair amount of plot with Martin Freeman and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. The Valentina character setting us up for the Thunderbolts film. It's like you have a lot of like MCU like side stories in addition to a movie that needs to be the coda for the loss of Chadwick Boseman and still be a sequel to Black Panther for all those other characters that are still alive. It just there has to be a lot accomplished in this movie, which is a long movie, but it's just a lot of goals for a franchise movie to attempt at. Of course, introducing one of the most popular and sought after historical Marvel characters, of course, Namor the Submariner. You're also bringing him into the mix as a fixture of the MCU moving forward. Like, they had a lot going on. And I think all those things I listed all have varying levels of effectiveness. But the movie itself ultimately gets a bit bogged down by having all that stuff.
So, what would you say are the most effective aspects of the movie to you?
So I gave Black Panther a rewatch right before seeing Wakanda Forever. And I think it really holds up. It's still my favorite MCU film. And the reason I love it so much is because the Black Panther movie, and both of them for that matter, largely due to the uh, you know presence of Ryan Coogler, one of our great directors, who is a bit overqualified to be making a Marvel movie, to be honest. Like, these movies are about something like tangible and real, which you can't say about almost any other MCU movie. Like, the themes of Black Panther, both of them, I think are really tangible and really compelling stuff, you know? And I love how those themes get tweaked from movie to movie. Wakanda starting out as an isolationist, protectionist kind of country. And then we're moving forward with Wakanda Forever, Wakanda in the world of MCU. Like, I say this all the time, like the MCU doesn't feel like a real place to me in terms of like a world. But I think Wakanda and also now Talokan, the or Namor's Atlantis, basically. Those two kingdoms and their relationship with each other and their relationship with the outside world, what that's about in terms of them trying to ward off Western imperialism
Mhm.
and the overreach of other governments and just taking care of themselves before people come after them. Like, that is really compelling and I think really smart way to ground this movie in a semblance of reality. And they nail it in the first movie. And I think when they're given chances to do it again in two, I do enjoy it. I really liked the use of Namor in this film because I think he's once again, like Killmonger, a compelling antagonist for a movie that has this kind of like high floor thematically, narratively. And I think Namor does a really good job of communicating the other side of the Wakandan like struggle to
Mhm.
sustain themselves as a kingdom without compromising who they want to be. And I thought all of that was really strong, and Tenoch Huerta's performance as Namor definitely pretty scene stealing as far as the
Oh yeah.
MCU goes. I liked him quite a bit. I'm very happy to see him return in the future. I liked a lot of that stuff, that's why like I'm willing to give Black Panther 2 more of a pass than I am to say other like mixed, muddled MCU sequels because I think there's like so much more under the hood with this movie thanks to just the creative decisions that are, at the helm here. So it's a long way of saying like I just think it's a bit smarter than some of the other stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You know, one of the moments in the movie that I appreciated the most was actually near the end, and Suri is, very
Shuri.
Shuri, sorry, is incredibly angry and looking for revenge, and she's talking about how she's gonna go kill Namor and all this, and just like totally defeat his people, and you get Winston Duke as M'Baku, who's like, all right, well that's your plan, but are we sure that this is really the right plan? Like, is this really
Mm,
how we want to be treating these people instead of like trying to help them or try to like
right?
approach this differently?
They don't need to be our enemies. It's very compelling.
Have we ever like other than like the obvious Captain America versus Iron Man, like two perspectives on governing superpowers and
Yeah.
the roles of superheroes? Have you ever really had any like thoughtful introspection or like conversation in the MCU about like what they're actually doing a lot of the time and like if it's actually like the right way to go about things? I don't really think
Yeah,
so.
maybe
You
some of
know?
like the Sokovia like stuff here
Yeah.
and there, but it's not given the time it deserves to be thematically rich.
Right, and so that was just a moment where it made me like step back and be like, "Oh, I mean, I just did not expect to hear that conversation happen." I really
Hmm.
appreciated that, and I think you summarized it really well. That the interplay of like what this African nation as a very powerful nation, but one that is not known to be powerful until the United States and other world powers are starting to discover its vibranium resource
Hmm.
as well as just its technological power in general, I think is really like a fascinating thing to explore. And I think I agree when you get some of the stuff where Ramonda goes in front of the I don't even know the
I think it
UN
was the
or
UN, yeah.
yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting. I liked that. I think actually a lot of what I didn't really vibe with that much was Letitia Wright as Shuri. It was hard I think to like totally buy into her experience, and she's got a hard role, right?
Yeah.
So right from the beginning, she's being tapped as like the one who's taking this torch, and that's already a difficult position to be in. But having to be grieving and
Yes.
angry and frustrated, and not really getting to do a lot of the things that she does really well, which is just be like snarky and charming and like chiming in, but having to like kind of carry it. I just don't think she was really uh, in the position to do that. And I almost kind of feel like there was a missed opportunity to maybe put Lapita a little bit more at the center of this film and maybe let
Yeah.
her do a little bit of heavy lifting, especially you get this post credit scene where her and Chadwick had this child that they haven't shared with the world or
Hmm.
even shared with Ramonda at all. And it's like maybe there was more there to explore, and that could have been something and let
Yeah.
Letitia kind of be in her bag more. But I don't know. It just that part was tough for me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think Letitia Wright's good in the movie. Um, she's given a lot more reps, in
Mhm.
this film, but a lot of those reps she has to be really sad or really mad.
Yep.
And like you said, she doesn't get to be as funnish and quippy as she was in the first movie, where she was really like a welcome like antecedent to the regal grace that was
Mhm.
Chadwick's T'Challa. Like she's note perfect in the first one. And I mean, it makes sense that she's like set up as our new Black Panther character. And of course, they have the son of T'Challa set up for like down the line post, you know, uh, Kang and everything, whatever. But yeah, I was expecting more of Nakia. I was expecting more of Lupita, no question. And like, it's like, man, it's like we all know how great of an actor Lupita Nyong'o is, and she's sidelined for a lot of this movie. I was really hoping she would be more front and
Mhm.
center. She carries some dramatic scenes for sure, but not as many as I was hoping for.
Yep.
Um, which is a bit disappointing, just because I mean I was not totally convinced that Shuri was gonna become the new Black Panther. Like you see the female in the suit in the trailer, the woman in the suit, and you're like, okay, it's probably Shuri, but is it?
Mhm.
Because maybe that was just me, like being a Lupita Nyong'o fan. I'm like, nah, make it Nakia, man, that would be
Yeah.
sick. They didn't do it.
Nope, they didn't do it. Also, quite a few people in this movie I really like that I feel like maybe didn't really get to show out. Obviously, you don't have Kaluuya coming back, which hurts.
Yeah, I
Losing
believe
him and
that was more to do just scheduling conflicts
yeah,
once the movie had to be pushed back after the loss of Chadwick. So yeah, you don't get what's his name, Wakabi. You
yep.
don't get Daniel Kaluuya back, which of course he's one of our great actors, so that is a loss
Mhm.
for sure.
But you get Michaela Cole stepping in,
Yes,
and
new character.
I had a lot of hope for her character to really like jump off the screen. And certainly when I first saw her, I didn't know she's in the movie, so I was like, Michaela Cole,
Oh,
great look,
nice
nice to
surprise.
see
Yeah.
you. Didn't really feel like her character really grabbed me the way I was hoping. I didn't love the new character. What was her name? The MIT student.
Oh, Riri Williams, Ironheart.
Yes, I didn't really love that character.
Interesting. You
I don't
didn't
know.
like her like different energy, her Americanness.
Definitely a different energy, and I actually think in terms of like action, the like scene on that bridge was probably one of my
Yeah,
favorites. Although I don't understand how there
in
was just
Boston.
no traffic, no one around. Like, don't really understand that, but cool.
I
But yeah,
should
I don't
I
know.
should have I
She's been
should have went to
grabbing.
that filming. Like that
Yeah,
is like a very public area.
y-
You could totally be on the shore watching that get filmed. Like that was like I was like fuck. I knew they were in Boston. I didn't know they were right there.
yeah, like literally right there. Although you would never be an extra only because you're so tall.
It's true.
But
Yeah, I don't fit the
unfortunate.
parameters.
But yeah, I think out of all the newcomers in terms of characters, definitely Tanakh Huerta was
Yeah.
by far the scene stealer, like you said. Um, of course, it ends in like a big CGI fight near the end, but
Hmm.
wasn't as bad as some of them. I thought it was kind of interesting.
No, I agree. I think the fight between Shuri and Namor in like the deserty, dark, dry area, I
Yeah.
thought that was actually pretty good because they do a good job of setting up like that conflict and like why Namor is so desperate to save his people, protect his people, and you understand Shuri's rage and where she's
Mhm.
coming from, right? I think that conflict all makes sense. And I was like, them going out on a big boat and having the Talokan people attack them in their area of choice, which would be the sea. I was like, you know what? They did just enough to make it make sense because like now we're gonna bait Namor and then we'll
Mhm.
take him out and like we just gotta like uh get our ass kicked until Shuri pulls it off. I was like, okay, they like I think they just convince you enough that that's like a good plan for a you know third act fight as we
Sure.
expect. Um, the CG is a bit up and down
Yeah.
in this one. I think I was watching, I was like, man, I think it's just like the stuff we've been talking about, how like the CG animation houses are just overworked, and like
Yep.
the fact that Black Panther 2 gets delayed, but still probably didn't have enough time for post, just kind of sucks, doesn't it? It's like
I
could
mean,
look better.
it's Marvel just having too much dip on their chip, man. Like they're just doing too much. They gotta slow it down to give
Right.
these people some time to really, I think, like craft things better.
Yeah.
Real
I
quick.
will I will
Oh, go
say
ahead.
though, like in terms of like too much dip on their chip, I think the use of Black Panther 2 to introduce Riri Williams was a very effective way to set up Ironheart and get people to care about that series.
Sure.
I like this method way more than putting someone in the series first and then dropping them in the movie. Not that that can't work. Like I'm sure like Kamala Khan will land in the Marvels when it comes out. Like to me, like this actually like increased my anticipation for
Hmm.
Ironheart, and I think that is
Interesting.
a win. Like reminds me of Civil War introducing us to T'Challa for the first time and increasing people's already high expectations for the Black Panther film. So
Mm.
now, if Black Panther Wakanda Forever wasn't as overstuffed, I think the Riri edition wouldn't feel as tacked on as it might to some. Because I actually think like that's something the MCU has done effectively before. Is that's kind of like the close connected storytelling of the MCU done right. It's something like that. Um, do you think they're still gonna make the Dora Milaje series that they talked about like a year ago? Remember, like they introduced the Dora Milaje and or brought him into Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of randomly, and we know they're gonna make a series. So they say. I wonder if that is still in the cards for the next plan for these immediate characters. I wonder.
I don't think you give Florence Kasumba and Michaela Cole the role that
Right?
you do, and
Good night,
then
Gajira as well. Yeah.
yeah, and then not do this. Especially you're gonna have um, Kasumba and Cole be romantically involved. I mean, that's set up for a television show right there. So I think they're definitely gonna do it at some point. And if you can get Michaela Cole writing it, I mean, come on,
Oh,
like why wouldn't you?
damn, that would be
I
sick.
I would love to see if Disney would actually like go for that though.
Yeah,
Might be too edgy for them. Real quick, Killmonger
comes
shows up
back.
in
Surprise.
this.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Honestly, I did like it.
Yeah,
I
me
think
too.
I think it worked. I think it worked. They set it up well, and like I love the ancestral plane. I think that shit works so well in the first movie. The score, the Louis Göransson drop
Hmm.
when like T'Challa goes to the ancestral plane and like sees his dad and shit. It's epic. It's like Lion King vibe inducing. Like it's so good, right? And
Yep.
this time around, they do it in like an unsatisfying way for the character. I thought that was really smart, really bright, and yeah, get to see Michael B again. Like having just rewatched the first one, like he really is spectacular as Killmonger. To some people, it's a bit of overacting. To me, I think it's just the right note, and
Yeah.
I really like seeing him here.
It was nice to see him. I thought it made sense, and he was making some points. Like he was making some points, to giving Shuri some hard truths. I think so.
Yep.
Um, any last thoughts on this? I mean, I don't know. I definitely wasn't as pleased with it as I was hoping to be, but I think
Yeah.
overall it's still better than a lot of the stuff we get with the MCU.
Right.
So
That's what I said. Like, there's all these parts, and they all have varying levels of effectiveness, and that's just kind of the unfortunate circumstance that was this movie. Now, the counter to that would be probably they should have just focused on Black Panther stuff and the loss of Chadwick, and not put a Riri Williams in this. Maybe even not try to Namor. Like, I'm sympathetic to that point of view, but I think
mhm,
for what it is, what it was trying to achieve, which was many things, it's up and down,
yeah,
and we've certainly seen worse.
think Kugler comes back for a third.
That's a great question, man. I
I
think
don't
he's
think
at
so.
least as a producer involved in the Dora Milaje series. At least he was announced as one. Obviously, we would love Ryan Coogler to make a non-franchise movie again. That would be
Mhm,
awesome. But I think he does bring I think, a thematic point of view to these movies that
mhm.
we don't get really anywhere else in the MCU. So obviously, I would welcome it.
I would definitely welcome it. I just my selfish hope is he starts making original stuff again. So
Yeah, of
we'll
course.
see.